Our guest, political science expert Nicholas Goedert from Virginia Tech University, has been very patient with us while we've gone through our intros and our updates. Professor, it's wonderful to have you here. I'm Connor. You and I have not had a chance to meet yet. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you're having a great Friday as well.
Sure, I am. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you for being here. And by the time next Friday comes, the vote will be done as far as this redistricting issue here in Virginia. This is something that has received extensive coverage. I wouldn't be surprised if many constituents are ready for it to be over. The amount of advertising, the amount of information, the amount of misinformation has been quite an overload here in Virginia, but it is a critical election nonetheless. I'm wondering, in terms of what we've seen from early voting, from voting thus far, does anything stand out to you about either participation or which way things are leaning for the time being?
Sure. I haven't followed the early voting numbers particularly closely, but my impression from the turnout numbers that we've seen is that Democrats probably have a very large lead in terms of turnout with respect to the early voting. This is not entirely surprising. I would expect the turnout to become more Republican once we get to Election Day. But I have seen estimates that turnout favors Democrats by 15 to 20 points just with respect to the early vote in this election.
And when it comes to this election, it strikes me as unique in the time that I've been paying attention and covering Virginia politics. Can you maybe, is there a historical precedent for all of the various factors that have led to this very special election? I mean, how unique is this?
Yeah, I don't know of any historical precedent in which a constitutional amendment has reached the ballot in such a quick succession of events. The constitutional amendment process in Virginia is designed to happen over a longer period, in that it requires two separate sessions of the state legislature to even get on the ballot in the first place. And then usually such a referendum would happen at a normal election date. So yes, it has happened very quickly compared to any other constitutional amendment that I can recall.
And when we talk about the unique aspects of this election, I'm wondering, in terms of, a degree of the advertising that we have seen has seemed like it's attempted to purposefully mislead voters as to what a yes vote or a no vote would entail. Have you noticed that as well? And how unique is that aspect of this?
Well, I don't think it's at all unique that political advertising would attempt to mislead voters in some way or other. I have certainly noticed that both sides have argued that they are the side of the fair elections or fair maps. In that both sides have groups behind them that have this sort of, that use this sort of terminology. I would say that in terms of the no campaign representing their campaign as being supported by politicians that don't actually support it, I think we have seen more of that than in typical elections, and that we've seen the no campaign using advertisements with the pictures of Barack Obama or Governor Spanberger, saying things about supporting fair elections, but not saying things specific to this referendum, and using that to represent them as supporting the no campaign.
And how different is that aspect of it, where you can have a quote that is about an entirely different situation and then reasonably apply it to this, and you kind of are within some sort of legal boundaries there? I mean, have you seen anything quite like that specifically?
I, I think I have seen that sort of technique used in the past. I don't think it is illegal in particular, but as long as they're using a factual quote. But I have also seen those sort of sentiments in terms of the no campaign targeting black voters in claiming that the map supported by the legislature, or the maps that would be redrawn by the legislature, would dilute black representation. There is some argument for that, but I think that the argument on the no side goes too far in its substantive representation of what would happen under the new maps.
Yeah, and then we talk about, the implications that could come from this. Obviously, there are going to be massive implications in terms of how Congress may look after the midterms. I'm wondering, though, in terms of what the vote may mean, what the vote result may indicate to us, how much of this do you see as a direct symbol of how the state is feeling about President Donald Trump's second term thus far?
I think that So it's actually interesting. I'm part of an organization called State Navigate. We recently ran a poll on this referendum. This poll found that the yes campaign was winning by about 5 points. Nevertheless, we found that Governor Spanberger's approval was basically exactly even, an equal number of people approve of her and disapprove of her. And that in this poll, Trump's approval rating was at something around minus 13, which is not very good, of course. But it's actually maybe not as bad as we might expect given what we've seen in national polling. So I don't know how much that we can take from this referendum in terms of support for either Governor Spanberger or Donald Trump. Certainly, the frustration with the Trump administration and frustration with Democrats' inability to effectively combat that, I think, was the central motivation behind this referendum in the first place. But I think there are Democrats who also are a little bit skeptical of giving power back to the legislature to redraw maps when we had just turned this over to a bipartisan commission to draw fair maps a couple of years ago. So I don't know that this vote is an exact proxy for support for Donald Trump or opposition to Donald Trump or support for Governor Spanberger.
So we don't see it maybe as a direct implication based on some of the work you've done at State Navigate. I'm wondering, within the studying that you guys have done, is there anything else that really jumps out to you here that we should know, or maybe that people wouldn't know about this redistricting vote?
So it was remarkable to us that among early voters, I think the referendum was passing by more than 10 points. Um, Among people who said they would vote on election day, the referendum was, I would say, losing by at least 10 points. So the outcome here, I think the yes campaign is probably favored, but it really will depend on election day turnout. And that election day turnout is going to favor the no campaign. And how many voters they can turn out is really going to determine, whether this succeeds or not. Even though, again, as our poll suggests and as the turnout data suggests, I think the yes campaign is favored to win.
Yes campaign is favored. This may be a matter of semantics here. Is it something that you would consider a prediction from you guys over at State Navigate? I know you guys have been very accurate on a lot of races in the past, or is it too close to call and that's just some of the numbers are indicate a leaning that way? Again, I know this is like a
I,
very sort of
yeah,
finite
I wouldn't,
exploration.
I wouldn't try to speak for everyone at State Navigate. I would say that we do find that the yes campaign has a lead that is slightly outside of the margin of error. But we're not issuing an official prediction about this, I would say.
Okay, and speaking of State Navigate, we were lucky enough to have Chaz Nuttycombe on this show months and months ago. We really enjoyed talking to him as well. So appreciate your organization for helping us out so often here. I'm wondering when it comes to the future of gerrymandering. Obviously, this has been presented as a temporary resolution, especially by the Vote Yes campaign. Is this something that you think could change how gerrymandering is viewed in the future, and in what ways could we see those changes?
I do think there is a cost to Democrats in terms of the perception of the party nationwide that they are using this sort of tit for tat strategy in this case. That they've responded to Republican mid-decade partisan gerrymandering by instituting partisan gerrymanders of their own. In several cases, Virginia and California notably, replacing nonpartisan or bipartisan commissions. So the Democratic controlled House in 2021 passed a national piece of legislation that would require nonpartisan commissions in every state in the country. And this was blocked by a Republican filibuster. So Democrats, I think, on a national level, had an advantage on this issue in terms of being the party that supported nonpartisan commissions and ending partisan gerrymandering. And I think there is somewhat of a cost to the party's image in advancing this sort of legislation or advancing this sort of referendum.
Yeah, and we talk about, you mentioned how it was national legislation attempting to make change in every state. We have seen this go from President Donald Trump asking Texas to find him seats, to California, to Illinois, North Carolina. It's been that domino effect. I'm wondering, are you guys able in your work to pinpoint maybe where the next state to fall might be in the redistricting pattern that we've seen here?
So I think the only state in which the maps are still uncertain after Virginia is Florida, where they are trying to draw a map to win a few more Republican seats. Um, Missouri also redrew their map to win an additional Republican seat. That is subject to a voter referendum and potentially a court challenge. So that state is still a little bit uncertain. But I think we are coming to the end of this long period of new maps.
Which I think, again, may be a relief for many Americans as we've been going through this for some time now. Now, you mentioned Abigail Spanberger's approval ratings, and I know we're kind of here to talk about redistricting, but since you mentioned it, I'd love to ask a couple questions about what you guys are seeing in those numbers over at State Navigate and in your other work. Have you seen that change markedly since the new group of bills has been signed into law, and in what direction?
I do think that we've seen in both our poll and a couple other polls that Spanberger has, in some ways, lost some of her honeymoon period, and that the approval for Spanberger has broken down along party lines. Um, how much of this is due to the actual legislation that Spanberger has either signed or intends to sign is uncertain. In that, I think some of this comes from Republican attacks on her on social media for bills that she didn't sign or bills that were not actually advanced in the state legislature. So, how much of this is actually due to what she has done in office rather than attacks against her for things that were perceived but not actually true? That's something that we can't really tease out of our poll, which was focused largely on the redistricting referendum.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. And then when it comes to these rapidly approaching midterms and the war in Iran's impact on them, and again, I know I'm going off topic, but I know you guys do a wide-ranging sort of path of research. Have you been able to pinpoint how big of an impact this war may have on midterms? I know some of it depends on where it goes from here, but thus far, what kind of impacts have you seen on midterm results based on the war in Iran?
So that wouldn't be something that we tested in our poll related to the redistricting referendum. I will say that we have seen President Trump's approval rating declining by a few points, but nevertheless systematically declining over the course of the last month. And that there has been a cost to President Trump and the Republican Party due to uncertainty around the Iran war. We have also seen this in the results of special elections in the House of Representatives and in state legislatures, where Democrats are systematically doing 10 or 20 points better than they did in 2024. And that this increase in their performance has gotten steadily a little bit better over the course of the last year. So I would say this would give a very bleak prognosis for Republicans in the 2026 midterms, if public opinion looks like it does today on a national level.
Okay, and thanks for kind of riding with me as I go on these tangents. I know you guys have such a wealth of information; it's hard for me to stay on topic. Sometimes there's so much to explore with the work that you guys do. Back to redistricting, is there anything unusual you're seeing about the sort of the voting public in terms of where certain demographics maybe are voting, or is it breaking down along expected Democrat Republican bipartisan lines?
So, with respect to Democrats and Republicans, it is breaking down with respect pretty strongly where Democrats are strongly in the yes campaign, Republicans are strongly in the no campaign. I would say among independents, independents are they're more evenly split than either Democrats or Republicans. That's not surprising. But there is a substantial majority in favor of no, in favor of independence. I think we see no winning among independents by more than 20 points. And so that's really going to, again, the Democrats built up a large advantage in the early vote, and it remains to see whether the no campaign can catch up on election day.
Okay, it remains to be seen, and we will wait and see eagerly here as voting day approaches on Tuesday. The last day of early voting is tomorrow on Saturday. Nicholas Goedert, nice enough to spend some time with us here on Friday. Is there anything else that we need to know before we let you go?
So, the one thing I would say about this map is that it would probably lead to Democrats winning 10 seats, whereas they only hold, 10 of Virginia's 11 seats, whereas they only hold six of the 11 seats right now. However, that does not mean that if the referendum does not pass, if the no campaign wins, that the Democrats would only hold six seats in 2027. I think Democrats are very likely to pick up at least one seat, even under the existing maps, and could easily pick up two seats. So we could see an 8-3 Democratic majority after the 2026 election, even if this referendum does not pass.
Okay, it's a great point. Thank you so much for that insight. And yeah, this not passing does not mean that there won't be a change in the look of the House going forward here in Virginia. So that another thing, we'll have to wait to the midterms to find out about that. We await till Saturday to find out, or till Tuesday rather, to find out about redistricting. A lot happening in politics here in the Commonwealth. Nicholas Goedert providing us with a lot of insight into all of it. We really appreciate your time, and hopefully you enjoy some good weather in Blacksburg.
All right, thank you. Yeah, have a great day.
All right, so we're very lucky here to start our show off getting a little bit more of a breakdown of what we're actually seeing here in terms of some of the polling in Virginia. You know, we've done a lot of coverage as to the two sides of this redistricting debate and how we got here, but getting a real look into some of that breakdown of where we're seeing votes, where there's a lead, where there's catching up to do, what's expected in terms of voter turnout to come on day of. All of it very helpful as we continue to cover that story very, very closely. Voting day is on Tuesday for that redistricting referendum. You can still vote early through tomorrow. Get out and have your voice heard. If you feel like you're in a situation here where your voice is not heard enough in national politics, this will have an impact on national politics, and it's only the people here in the Commonwealth voting on it. So a chance to have your voice maybe a little bit more heard when it comes to the scales nationally here.